maybe a little bit more abstract is just a mindset shift. Like I tell people
Yeah.
all the time, if you want to make a transition, it's not about if you'll transition, if that's what you really want to do. It's just a matter of when.
Today's guest is Dr. Pinay Kainth, a seasoned leader in medical affairs and executive director at a biopharmaceutical company. With over 15 years of global experience across neurology, rare genetic diseases, immunology, and dermatology, he's played a pivotal role in multiple drug launches and other initiatives. Pinay is also a career coach and the co-author of Making a Successful Transition from Academia to Industry, a must-read for academics exploring careers outside academia. Before I get in the podcast, are you interested in using your PhD experience to make $60 to $150 an hour? The Handshake AI Fellowship is a remote part-time role where you help train and improve AI models using your subject matter expertise. There's no coding skills or startup experience needed, just use your knowledge. The application is simple. Share your academic and professional background, then complete a short onboarding with training, a quiz, and a practice test. If you're interested in the Move program, I'll leave a link in the description. If you get the role or even sign up, it supports after your PhD and what I do. Really appreciate it. Thanks. Well, firstly, I just want to thank you for coming on to the podcast. It's great to hear from someone, especially in the medical space.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Ryan, and thanks for inviting me. I'm looking forward to
Mhm.
our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you've had a pretty incredible journey through like medical affairs, spanning through like rare diseases, neurology, and all these other ones that I mentioned. And I just want you to walk us through kind of your career trajectory and what really initially drew you to the medical field as a whole.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think the key part of it there is journey, right? It is a journey. Career transition or career shift is quite the journey when you reflect back on it. And what drew me to all of this? I mean, I'm a scientist, right? Like I did my
Mm,
PhD in a research lab, and it was very scientifically focused, not directly related to the medical field, and I wasn't, doing clinical research either. So for me, it was one of those things. Like I had a successful PhD. I had the postdoc set up as well, and I was ready to pursue it. But I've always had this sort of curiosity, I would say, about business in particular, and getting into the business world. Now, I had no idea when I graduated in 2009. I had no idea what that meant, right? Except that I had a curiosity, and that was always sort of there. And I felt as though if I didn't kind of maybe explore that a little bit, I would always wonder, right? Like, what
mm,
would a career path look like in industry or within a business setting? And, for me, I didn't know what to do. I didn't really know how to explore that. I didn't have really resources that I turned to. I got lucky. I got a job with an agency selling services to pharmaceutical companies through basically through LinkedIn. Um, so my career path is a little bit of getting lucky to get that foot in the door and then sort
mhm.
of capitalizing on that luck. Then from there, figuring out, hey, this is how the industry works, and this kind of maybe initially a little bit painfully figuring out my way into a role within industry that is science-based
Mhm.
within the medical field. So there's probably a lot to unpack there, right?
Yeah. Well, and I know some people like they had this like ambition to be a professor,
Yeah.
but it seems like you really kind of there's a lot more different routes you took instead, and I think it seems like you're much happier kind of where you are now.
Yeah, yeah, reflecting on it, right? Like, I've had a lot of really good opportunities to speak with people in a similar boat
Mm,
recently, right? In terms of new graduates. And when you're in it, when you just graduate and you're thinking ahead and career shifts and what can you do, there's just so much uncertainty, right? Um,
yeah, for sure.
but I've had about 15 years now post PhD and doing different things and in different types of roles. And you're right, like when I stitch it all together and think back and reflect, I am really happy in terms of where I'm at and what I'm able to contribute, right? Like I'm a scientist by background. When people ask me how to identify, I'm an academic, I'm a scientist. So
Mm,
I really feel like I've found a role within industry that utilizes sort of that background, I would say, and allows me to contribute with that sort of foundation, right? That I'm a PhD and I'm academic and I'm a scientist, right?
for sure. And I do have another kind of related question. So, what are some common misconceptions scientists and some clinicians have about moving into industry? I'm sure that some of them had this picture in their head of what industry is like. Maybe it's just they feel like it's all about money. Maybe that there's no purpose. What would you say to those types of people?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think some misconceptions are, maybe some people feel or perceive or a misconception that you're giving up on a path, right? Like your PhD and you're sort of leaving academia, you're giving up on the professorship in a way, or if you're a medical doctor who wants to transition, you're giving up on patient care. And from my perspective, I don't view it that way. I mean, now that I have experience sort of doing it and seeing the way the field evolves, it really is just applying your knowledge and your skill set in a different way to a similar problem, but just in a different way, right?
Mm,
Um, Ultimately, helping society, right? Like at the end of the day, medication is an important part of health and well-being, right? And if
for sure.
individuals need medication, they need individuals with technical backgrounds to be working at these companies to help bring the innovations forward, along with people with other backgrounds. So I would say that's a key one. There's some other kind of practical things, right? I think a lot of people worry, well, I don't have a business degree. Should I do, maybe I need an MBA or I don't know how to read a balance sheet or, you know, companies, they need to make revenue and I don't know how to sell. I've never been a salesperson, right? All of those types of things, or, I don't really like networking. I don't feel comfortable networking, right? But all of those types of things are, I think, misconceptions,
I agree.
um, and don't need to be barriers, right?
Mhm. Well, and I think for some, like maybe it's a good kind of pivot to like this notion of barriers because there are people like not people, sorry, but there are like PhDs, other even postdocs who are kind of feeling stuck. Maybe they're been in the system for a while and they feel like there's not really a way to move outside academia or to really pivot. What advice would you have for these people? Like, what's like a good actionable step they could do like today, even if they wanted to try to pivot outside of academia?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I spoke with someone very recently who fit that profile to the T and was sort of worried, have I pigeonholed myself too much? And my advice is no, no. I think the first step, I think, is talking to the people around you and getting comfortable talking to the people around you in your circle about what you want to do, that you're thinking about a career shift and you're thinking about maybe an industry role. You don't know what that looks like because I think starting the conversation is that those are the seedlings of building your network in maybe a different way, right? Then you will encounter people who are like-minded and have the same view, right? And tapping into that. So I think one like very simple actionable step is start voicing, even if it's not concrete. You may not know like that's exactly what I want to do, but start voicing it and get some feedback from people and start a discussion, right? I think that's step one. That's I think very actionable. I think maybe a little bit more abstract is just a mindset shift. Like I tell people all the time, if you want to make a transition, it's not about if you'll transition, if that's what you really want to do. It's just a matter of when and what steps you might have to take in your own career journey to sort of get there. Um, so I would say, a little bit of a mindset shift as well.
Yeah, that's a good point because even I kind of looking back kind of can kind of relate to that because I think there's this notion about if you're like really wavering on something, like you're not going to make that step. You're just
Hmm.
you're asking questions without like trying to answer them, or you're just kind of like, yeah, I can definitely see how that like would definitely motivate you to talk to people, like change your resume. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
things that would definitely kind of propel you forward. So I can definitely kind of agree with that. And I know, like, at least during my transition, a big part of it too was like reading different types of books, reading people's like even like guides of like how to make a transition. And I think this would be good to talk about a book that you recently wrote, along with a co-author, called "How to Make a Successful Transition from Academia to Industry." I think it'd be great if you give us a really short summary of what the book is about, just for those who haven't read it. I think it would help to give a good insight of what to expect.
Yeah. So the book is really as titled, Making a Successful Transition from Academia to Industry. And the idea is my co-author, Dr. Guido Filler, and I, what we aim to do is provide some practical guidance and insights for people. It's focused to our backgrounds for those in science and medicine, but I do think it has maybe broader applicability. But giving ideas of some actionable steps that people can take in their journey and in their career planning. If they're thinking of a career shift, either maybe out of medical practice or out of an academic institution in a lab, for example. And what we tried to do is integrate the lived examples or real life experience of people we actually interviewed. It's not just sort of our own experience, but the experience of others, and touch on a number of key issues and questions people may have, like how to write a resume, how to interview, your transferable skills. I think that's a really hot topic, but also thinking more broadly, right? Like thinking about finding purpose and motivation and contributing to a positive workplace culture, right? And I think if I were to button it all up and tie it in, boy, I hope the book has practical tips and guidance that people can take that are really actionable. But I kind of learned this later in the book writing process. This was new for me. I really hope what I think the book is about is inspiring people that this is possible and it's definitely doable, right? And it's a good thing that you're exploring this if you think it's right for you. And really, I hope it inspires people who are in the same boat as me and gives a little bit of direction and structure around thinking about the transition.
Yeah, and speaking of inspiration, like I do wonder, like, what did inspire you and your co-author to write the book? Just in terms of like, why did this book need to be written? Because there are other books on the subject, and then I think there's one called Leaving Academia. I know there's a few others like in the space, and I'm sure you did like a literature review also
Yeah,
as an
yeah,
academic. Try
absolutely.
to find those gaps. So I'm kind of curious, like, what did you find was missing from these books that you read, and what did you use from your own kind of personal experience to really supplement this book?
Yeah, yeah. So a couple things, right? Like we really geared this towards academics and science and medicine. I think that's
Mhm.
kind of one point about the book in terms of
Yeah.
that's my background. Dr. Filler is a medical doctor and a PhD. He's a pediatric nephrologist. He brings a different lens. So I think that's one. And when I started talking to people, those who are approaching the end of their PhD, they were looking for something that speaks to them in the types of words and thinking that they have in science and medicine, very specifically, right? Like I'm speaking when in areas of the book where I'm narrating it, I'm really speaking to people like we were in a lab, right? And they're doing their PhD in some sort of model organism or maybe clinical. But I think tailoring it to that audience is important. And I think the other part of it is Dr. Filler and I bring two different lenses. So I transitioned into industry. Dr. Filler has coached a number of students into their transition in industry, and he collaborates with industry as part of his work, but he's actually remained, he's an academic professor. So I think we bring a unique viewpoint and a lens to the topic, sort of based on some of those points. But
Mhm.
what got us really to do it, a chance encounter with I had with Dr. Filler. I got to know him. He had just finished writing a book of how to become a successful scholar, which was geared towards people who wanted to rise to sort of the top in academia. So this really interested him when I told him that I had this idea that I was thinking about, and our relationship just kind of spawned from there and turned into this work.
Well, yeah, that's great to hear, and I'm sure people are going to be like really interested to read this book because I know like it helps just to like hear stories and hear like kind of what we're doing with the podcast, but just like
Hmm.
having something that you can kind of uphold and read and like kind of study. I think just as academics, I think that helps a lot.
Hmm.
And I did want to talk about also like how some other ways you're doing to help like academics and medical maybe PhDs. I know that you're doing some career coaching on LinkedIn, and I'm wondering what does that really entail? Like, what types of services are you offering, and kind of like, can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, yeah. When I graduated and I got into industry, like I said, right, like I didn't really feel like there were resources, but quite frankly, I didn't really know to look, right? Like I wasn't really educated on the process, right? And I just kind of figured it out and found my way. But one of the things is just I naturally gravitated towards as I sort of got more experience, right? And working at companies, maybe they had like a summer internship program that were
Mhm.
bringing in students, graduate students and people in different sort of stages of their academic path. I've just always naturally gravitated to being interested in what they were up to in their internship, their academic path, what their motivations were, and where they were sort of going, like what they wanted to do. I don't know why I've been interested in that. So I've always sort of taken them under my wing in some way, shape, or form, and kept in touch. So, you know, the career coaching part for me, I would say, is not like a formal thing that I'm doing. It's obviously with the launch of the book, I've sort of formalized that on LinkedIn, but really what I'm hoping to do and wanting to do is just connect with people. And
Mhm.
if I can give back some of my time to just talk to people, hear what they're up to and give some advice, whether it be maybe they have an interview coming up and they want to know, like I've never had a interview in a medical affairs department, but this is really exciting for me, but I have no idea what to expect. Like maybe I'll do a mock interview, for example, review, take a look at resumes and give tips and tricks and things like that. So um, what I've learned, what is really interesting is sort of career coaching, right? Like probably when I'm talking to people, they feel like, it's a one-way thing. Like I'm sort of giving advice and feedback and sort of teaching, if you will. But I've learned so much talking to students just over the last 2 months, right? Talking to people graduating about where they're at, what they want to do, what the job market looks like, and all of that. Like I'm learning a lot as well, and I'm quite interested in what the challenges are that the next generation of leaders are facing, right? Because it's really what they are, right? Like many of these people will become the next group of leaders. So that's kind of the way I've approached it and a little bit informal, but starting to formalize it a little bit by updating my LinkedIn and letting people know that this is something I'm interested in doing and can feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, and are like non maybe like medical students also open to reach out to you? Because I have a feeling maybe it's not just medical students.
Yeah, it's PhDs, medical students, MSCs,
Mhm.
PharmDs, right? Like, um, really, from a career perspective, right? Like anyone who's thinking of making a career shift or getting into say, the pharmaceutical, and that's what I work in the pharmaceutical industry. I think that's probably where I could be most helpful. And yeah, you're absolutely right. And just giving back.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear because I know especially LinkedIn is like the place to be, especially if you want to network for this space. So that's I'm glad you're kind of putting more time into that. And I will know I did I missed the question, but I mean that's fine. It is related to like medical PhDs or just
Mhm.
medical students, but I wanted to talk a little bit about like skills that you gain like during your study and then maybe how you're using them now because I know like you weren't maybe trained to be in sales like during your
Sure.
PhD or maybe you weren't
Yeah.
trained in certain areas. So I wanted to go back a little bit to this in terms of like was there anything that was transferable? Was there anything that was kind of learned like during the pivot in terms of like
Yeah.
this? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great topic, and again, I wish I sort of educated myself on reflecting on this when I was finishing
Mhm.
up my PhD and positioning sort of myself to the job market, right? But it's so important, I think, for academics to recognize their transferable skills and communicate them when they're networking, on their resume, and particularly in a job interview, right? Like because there are many, right? Like in my line of work, communication skills are critical, particularly oral presentation skills, right? And then there's different layers of that. One is just can you give a good solid presentation and kind of deliver the point, but for scientists, the other layer is can you distill really complex scientific topics and literature into the key points, right? Like what do these 15 really detailed studies mean for strategy X or topic X, right? Um, and and being able to share and communicate that. I think that's really important, right? But you think about the life of an academic, like I didn't give a lot of presentations as an undergrad, just wasn't part of the work. I did a lot of writing. But when I got to grad school, like right away, I was presenting at lab meetings like every other week, giving seminars in the first year, right? Committee meetings, like I was presenting all the time. And that was kind of new for me. But I think we need to highlight that where like presentation skills is key. Other areas, right? Like, many of us who we don't really think about us as project managers, but if you've completed a
Mhm.
PhD, you've completed a big project, right? And you've probably self-managed that project from A to Z, right? And there's probably other stakeholders involved if you have collaborators and all of that. Like, I think you want to highlight those types of things, right? And
Mhm.
the other type, there's hard skills, or yeah, the hard skills, but then there's soft skills, right? Like, conflict does happen in academia as well, right? If you've ever worked on a paper with 15 people and had to figure out who the first author is going to be, right? Like, what types of soft skills were utilized in conflict resolution, for example, empathy, using emotional intelligence and things like that. So there's a lot of examples, I think, in the academic world that resonate in industry. And it's all just kind of thinking, reflecting, and then packaging it to the audience that you're going to be speaking with.
Yeah, and that's I think really helpful because I think just being able to like translate your skills is a very like useful like I think skill in itself, and like I think you kind of mentioned where you can like do this like your resume and other places. Because for me, at least when I wanted to transfer to like digital marketing, like having
Mhm.
like a website for one was nice to have, like to kind of show off things I've done. Just kind of show like the acumen of like you can make a website and like that type of thing. So yeah, basically like showing what you know is really important too. And I did want to leave the floor open for anything else you had to say because I just want to make sure because since these are kind of shorter discussions, I just want to make sure everything that you'd like to say has been covered. So is there anything that wasn't addressed that you want to touch upon or share like for those listening?
Yeah, I would just kind of double down on the sort of inspiration piece, right? Like, I think there's so much uncertainty. The job market right now, I know isn't
Mhm.
the greatest, but
Yep.
I think it's definitely doable, right? And we sort of talked about that. It kind of mentioned it's not a question for people who are just worried about what their future outlook looks like in terms of getting a job. I agree, getting the first job is difficult, right? But once you get that, you have traction, and it becomes easier from there. But don't give up, right? Like, stick with it, put together a plan, talk to people, read books and all of that. But really, really, like, be excited, right? Like that's the one thing I tell people. You should be excited. It's such an exciting point in your life when I reflect back, like especially when you just graduated with your PhD or other academic degree. Like, be excited about the journey ahead. There's a lot of unknowns. There'll be ups and downs, but there's a lot to look forward to, right? And I hope at the very least we can just inspire people to approach it with a level of excitement and enthusiasm versus a little bit of you know fear and anxiousness around it.
Yeah, and I think looking back, at least for me, I think it turned out good in the end. Like I
Yeah,
think that's something too. Like it's hard to know like if you made a good decision until you like look back. But I feel like the
exactly.
people I've talked to, at least the ones that want to talk to me, maybe there's people that made a pivot and they don't want to share that. But for the most part, like they seem like they're at peace, that they've kind of found like a place where they can still do fulfilling things, even
Hmm.
if it's not like at a university. So I think ultimately it does take time to know, but it's good to kind of hear what you have to say as well and kind of you sharing your story. And I did also want to just leave the floor open in terms of like we're wondering where you can actually like purchase the book. I just want to make sure that gets a nice mention. I'm happy to include it like in the description of the podcast for people who can purchase. But my understanding is like it's an ebook, so you can probably find it anywhere. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So it's available on all the major ebook platforms, Google Books with international distribution. So Google Books,
Mhm.
Apple Books, and all of that if you like reading on your iPad or phone. But you can also order it on Amazon. There's a paperback and hardcover version. If you Google it on Amazon and in sort of the country you reside, you should be able to find it as well. So we haven't sort of got it into brick and mortar retail yet. That's sort of the next stage. But if you like a physical copy, you can certainly Google it, and you'll find it on Amazon or online through sort of
Mhm.
the major retailers. and you can order it that way.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that'll be really easy to find then. But yeah, I'll
Yeah.
make sure to post it. Yeah. So yeah, just, like I said, I kind of keep these short, but I really appreciate you for taking the time to speak with me. So again, thank you.
And anytime, Ryan, and thanks for the opportunity. And you know what? Thank you for doing your part, right? Like I think it's great what you've done and sort of accomplished with your LinkedIn group. So great
Mhm.
job with it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. All right. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.